I'm going to ask you to start by using your imagination a little bit. I know I don't really look like him, but I'm here for Rabbi Kosak, who could not be with us this evening, and he asked me to read a letter from him to you. My name is Cheryl Livney, and I'm a member of the Israel360 committee. Friends, they say you cannot dance at two weddings, which is a nice Yiddish way of saying you can't be in two places at once. A happy work obligation has taken me out of town as Fred Rothstein, the executive director of Neve Shalom, a member of the Israel360 committee, is inducted to his term as president of the North American Association of Synagogue Executives. Yeah. Given that, I apologize that I can't welcome Bassam Eid in person or thank the Federation with whom we are co-sponsoring tonight's program. First, let me thank Mr. Eid for joining us and for sharing his perspective with us. Second, I want to thank my colleague and friend, Rabbi Daniel Isaac, for overseeing tonight's program. I want to applaud you for attending tonight's event. If you are here, it is because you are deeply passionate about Israel. So too is everyone else in this sacred chapel. As we all know, the same passion that energizes us sometimes can interfere with civil discussions about Israel. Indeed, too many congregations shy away from Israel programming precisely because of that passion. We do not. Instead, we have set up a set of guidelines and created a tool for civil discourse, which I hope you picked up on your way in. If not, we can pass them around. We believe that with proper restraint, a civil tone, and self-awareness, all perspectives can have a place at the table. Thank you for being here tonight, and again, my deep appreciation to Bassam Eid for traveling to be with us and to share his important perspective on Israel, Palestine, and civil rights. Warmly, Rabbi David Kosak. Now I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Isaac.
So when the rabbi is away and the assistant rabbi is away, they call him one of the old-timers. So let me, first of all, welcome you to Neve Shalom. And let me tell you just a little bit about Israel360. This evening's event is being co-sponsored by the Jewish Federation and CRC, as well as Israel360, which is our Neve Shalom program, determined to keep Israel front and center in our lives. We read all too often about the fact that Israel has become much less important to the American Jewish community, that we have the American Jewish community feels alienated from Israel, and we are determined that Israel should remain a very important and vital aspect of our Jewish identity. So Israel360 plans an event, one event a month, having to do with Israel. We've had, just as an example, we've had a representative from the Consul General of Israel. We have had someone from Wider Bridge that talked about the LGBTQ community in Israel. We have had Dr. Uri Shenis, ecological cooperation between Jordan and Israel through the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies. We've had Mickey Gitson from the New Israel Fund, which advocates for democracy in Israel. We've shown the film The Gatekeepers. We have also had the Israeli Safrai Gallery do an art show here. So Israel is certainly much more than politics. Unfortunately, what we read in the newspaper often is just about politics or the Arab-Israeli conflict. Certainly there's much more, but we do not shy away from politics either, and therefore want to present the full spectrum of what's happening in Israel. On April 4th, we will have a program to which you're all invited, and there's no cost for most of these programs. Every once in a while, we have to find funds to fund the program. This one's called My Israel Story. There's an evening of personal Israel-related true stories at the Moth-style storytelling storytelling event. If you feel inspired, put your name in the hat for the second half of the show to share personal story about how an experience in Israel changed you or impacted your life. That's on April 4th. On May 23rd, we will host a panel discussion on Israeli elections. All of us on the committee have seen a movie called The Two-Sided Story, which some of you may have seen, about Israelis and Israeli Arabs who have gotten together to try to understand one another. And we hope to be able to show that show and have a discussion about it very soon. Before I introduce Bob Hornstein, who will introduce our speaker, I want to share an experience of mine. In 1987, prior to my coming here to Portland, Israel did something that it had never done before. It took someone from its diplomatic corps, an Israeli Arab, and made him the consul general in Atlanta. His name was Muhammad Masarwa. And I was very intrigued by this. So I invited Consul General Musarwa to come to Briarcliff Manor, to my synagogue. And I share this with you, not only because we have an Israeli-Arab speaker this evening, but to share with you sort of discomfort. Here I was sitting on the bima, and as a rabbi, I've often been asked to speak, whether it's Jewish audiences or non-Jewish audiences, to represent Israel, to speak about various aspects of Israel, sometimes in debate, sometimes just informative. And here was this man who stood at the pulpit wearing a kippah. He was the official representative of the state of Israel. He votes in Israeli elections. I'm not a citizen of Israel, despite my love, despite the many times that I've been there. I don't vote in Israeli elections. I suspect that we may have a couple of Israeli citizens here in the audience tonight, but most of us, despite our great love, our concern, our involvement in Israel, despite our trips to Israel, are looking at Israeli news that probably before we read anything else in the newspaper. We're not Israeli citizens. We don't vote in Israeli elections. So I felt a little uncomfortable. An Israeli Arab, he was the genuine item. He was the official representative of the state of Israel, not me. I must tell you that Mr. Musarwa did not last. I don't know what he's been doing since, but not long after he was recalled. Not because he did anything wrong, but because it was uncomfortable for many people, many Jews, as he spoke, that the consul general of Israel was an Israeli Arab. I feel very saddened by that. I don't know what the Israeli diplomatic corps has done since in terms of presenting the full gamut of the Israeli population. But I share that with you. Our speaker tonight is not an official representative of the state of Israel. He's a journalist. But again, he's a citizen of the state of Israel. He will vote in this upcoming election. Who he's going to vote for, I have no idea. But I assume that he's going to vote. So his vantage point, I think, is a little different. Whenever we hear of someone from Israel who's not Jewish, but comes as an Israeli citizen, it's a whole other. We can view the state from an entirely different perspective. So with that, let me call on Bob Hornstein, who can introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good evening, Erev Tov. As you just heard, my name is Bob Horenstein, and I'm the Director of Community Relations and Public Affairs for the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland. I want to also welcome all of you on behalf of the Federation, its Jewish Community Relations Council, or JCRC, which is chaired by Jeff Reingold, sitting here in the front, and of course our gracious host congregation, Neva Shalom. The JCRC, with representation from a broad cross-section of the local Jewish community, works to safeguard the social safety net, promote civil rights, combat bigotry and anti-Semitism, and strengthen ties between the local community and the State of Israel. During the current legislative session, the state legislative session, our work includes such diverse issues as ensuring that Medicaid is adequately funded, strengthening the state's hate crime laws, and mandating that Holocaust and genocide education be taught in our public high schools. And I'm very happy to report that today, the Oregon Senate, by a vote of 27-0, passed the Senate bill. Yes. That's Senate Bill 664. It's now moving to the House, where it will sit for a while, and we'll keep you posted on the progress. So we're very excited about that. The JCRC's Israel Advocacy Committee, which is chaired by Michelle Bombet-Mitch, also sitting here in the front, educates elected officials and other non-Jewish influentials about Israel, developments in the Middle East, and most importantly, works to counter efforts to delegitimize the Jewish state. We also, of course, sponsor programs such as tonight that discuss important and timely issues related to Israel. I know that, Rabbi, you mentioned the April 4th program, but I also hope that you'll join us at the Middleman Jewish Community Center on Wednesday, April 3rd, where we have Herb Keenan, who's the chief diplomatic correspondent for the Jerusalem Post. He will be talking about the Israeli elections. There's flyers out there in the lobby. Keep in mind, this is just 6 days before that important election takes place. So I hope you can join us at 7 o'clock that night. So I want to introduce our speaker. He gave me a bio, but the print is really, really small. So Bassam Eid, he's actually a Palestinian. And so he's not an Israeli citizen, but he is a Jerusalem-based political analyst, human rights pioneer, and expert commentator on Arab and Palestinian affairs. He was born in the Jordanian-occupied Old City of Jerusalem, and he grew up in the UN refugee camp of Shuafat, where he spent the first 33 years of his life. It was in the late 1980s when he rose to prominence doing his human rights research and work. And in the mid-1990s, after the signing of the Oslo Accords, he actually began to really focus on the Palestinian Authority, which was created by those agreements. In 1995, following his report about the Palestinian Preventive Security Service, he actually came under attack by some Palestinian leaders for revealing human rights violations by the Palestinian Authority. In fact, he was arrested by Yasser Arafat's presidential guard, but was released, thankfully, after 25 hours because of international condemnation. In 1996, in response to the deterioration of the human rights situation under the Palestinian Authority, Bassam founded the Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group. This is a nonpartisan human rights organization dedicated to exposing human rights violations and supporting a democratic and pluralistic Palestine. 3 years ago, Bassam was named the chairman of the Center for Near East Policy Research, which uncovers facts that lie beneath the surface of mainstream media news coverage of Israel, paying particular attention to the human face of all those who are affected by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, he's also an outspoken critic of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, otherwise known as BDS. And in fact, in expressing some of his criticism, he's actually put himself at great risk, and he might talk about that maybe during the Q&A. He has many published works, too many to go into right now, but I know many of you probably either read the Jerusalem Post or maybe you follow the Times of Israel, and Bassam is a regular op-ed contributor to those publications. He has also received many public awards. The Association for Civil Rights in Israel has awarded him its Emil Gruenzweig Memorial Award. And he was also the recipient of the Robert S. Litvak Human Rights Memorial Award granted by McGill University Faculty of Law in Montreal. And I could go on and on. He's very impressive, as you can tell. But you don't want to hear me. You want to listen to him. So I want to call him up now.
Thank you very much, and shalom. To everybody, I want to thank each of you for attending this event, and of course to thank the Jewish Federation for organizing this trip here to Portland, and to extend my thanks, of course, to the Neve Shalom Synagogue, and to the first rabbi, the second rabbi, and the third rabbi, who is sitting here with us. Thank you very much. As Bob mentioned, I am a person who almost spent around 26 years of my life defending the rights of the Palestinians. I started defending them under the Israelis, and I ended by defending them from the Palestinian Authority. You know, to create human rights under the Arab regime, it looks like to commit a suicide. Not that easy, and that's one of the main reasons why I was arrested by Arafat in 1996. Since 6 years ago, I decided to put the issue of human rights aside and to start, let's say, a new kind of a position, a political analyst from a completely different perspective towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This message, almost accepted by the international community, especially in the United States, where I am traveling between 5 to 7 times a year to the US. I visited the major of the campuses around all over the United States, including Hawaii. And in the past 2 years, looks like that the Europeans start listening to the voices from outside. Because as you know, the Europeans listening for themselves only. And in the past 2 years, I made several trips to the EU, to the UK, to Germany, to Spain, and even to Norway. So I hope that this message will become wider and wider. Now, since we want to talk about, our title tonight is the internal Palestinian conflict. And I want to use this opportunity and probably to start from Gaza, which is the heart, let's call it, of the conflict these days. If we will look today to the Gaza Strip, we will find that there are 4 different players playing inside the Gaza Strip. The first player is the Egyptian government. Second player is the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. The third player, of course, the Hamas, who is ruling the Gaza Strip since 12 years ago. But the fourth player is Israel. Now, what is the difference between these four different players? The first two players, which is the Egyptian government and the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank, are very interesting in the destruction of the Gaza Strip. Why they are interested in the destruction of Gaza? Because the Egyptian government believes that the Hamas is a terrorist organization. The Egyptian government believes that while Egypt imposing more and more pressure on the Gaza Strip, that's probably the only way how to get rid from the Hamas organization. What is the interest of the Palestinian Authority? The Palestinian Authority also believes that while Egypt imposing more and more pressure on Gaza, that's probably will pave the way for the Palestinian Authority to return to Gaza and to recontrol Gaza like they used to do till 2007. What about the other two players? In my opinion, the other two players are interesting in the reconstruction of Gaza Strip. And that's amazing when a Palestinian is standing up by saying that Israel is interested in the reconstruction of Gaza. I believe so because the reconstruction of Gaza for the Israelis is an economic issue. And Israel is an economic country. Israel knows that while the international community are going to donate any kind of money for the reconstruction of Gaza, Gaza is the one who is going to sell the reconstruction material to the Gaza Strip. And we are talking about billions of dollars here. So if Israel and the Hamas almost agreed on the reconstruction of Gaza, what is the conflict between Israel and Hamas? The conflict is that the Hamas said that the priority for the reconstruction of Gaza should have to go to our own tunnels and to our own military capability. While Israel said, no way. The priority for the reconstruction should have to go to the houses and to the other civil facilities which has been destroyed during the 2014 war. And this is unfortunately why the whole issue of the reconstruction of Gaza almost delayed. Because of the conflict among the Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority want to take responsibility and the Hamas want to take responsibility. Because the one who will take the responsibility will receive the money. And the one who will receive the money will be able to corrupt the Palestinians. Immediately after the war in 2014, there was a big donors conference in Egypt, in Cairo. And the donors in that time decided to contribute $5.5 billion to reconstruct the Gaza Strip. What's happened since that time? Only $200 million received. From whom? From Qatar. Qatar transferred it to the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, instead of to reconstruct houses in Gaza in that amount of money, they use it for the salaries of their own employees. And now Qatar decided that no one penny to the Palestinian Authority. Friends, if we will look today to the Rafah Passage, which is dividing Gaza from Egypt, During the last year, 2018, the Rafah Passage was open only for 20 days during all of the year. How many Palestinians succeed to cross it from Gaza to inside Egypt? 20,000 only. If we will move backward to 2011 as an example, how many Palestinians succeed to cross from Gaza to inside Egypt? 460,000. Around 500,000. And that number dropped to 20,000 only. And that's showing you the pressure that Egypt is trying to impose on the Gaza Strip right now. Now, if we will move a little bit to the West Bank, I am a person who believes that if Mr. Netanyahu tomorrow morning will meet with President Abbas, probably the first question that Netanyahu is going to ask Abbas, whom you are representing, Mr. President? West Bank, Gaza Strip, or Palestinians diaspora? In my opinion, Abbas only representing his 2 sons and his wife. I think that the majority of the Palestinian people almost lost the trust in their own leadership. If you will come today to any ordinary Palestinian, asking him, what are the most 3 priorities that you are seeking? He will say a job to survive, to secure the education system and the health system for my children. Nobody is talking about settlements. Nobody is talking about the wall. Nobody is talking about the foundation of the Palestinian state, which means that the majority of the Palestinians are people who are seeking dignity rather than identity. I used to teach my Palestinian colleagues in the refugee camps that homeland is not the place where you're born. Homeland is the place where you can find dignity, justice, and freedoms. That's the real homeland. Friends, if we will look to the Middle East map these days and how the Islamic terror increasing, believe me, we will find that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is probably the most safe place in the Middle East. As an Arab, as a Muslim, I don't want to be in Libya. I don't want to be in Syria. I don't want to be in Iraq. I don't want to be in Yemen. It is much safer for myself and for my children to continue living under the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Arab countries these days, each country almost is stuck in its own mud. And no one Arab country today is paying any attention to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I remember in the late 60s and the 70s, we used to talk about 2 different conflicts with Israel. The Israeli-Arab conflict and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But since probably in the past 20 years, nobody is mentioning the Arab-Israeli conflict at all. It looks like that it's solved by itself. And no one is scared about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We can see in the past probably 2 or 3 years how the Arab countries are running towards normalization with Israel. Nobody can deny that. It's already public. The Israelis talk about it, and the Arab countries talking about it. And no doubt that the nuclear weapon deal between Obama and the Iranians almost paved the way towards the security coordination between the Gulf and Israel. No doubt about it. Because some of the Gulf countries these days don't believe the American administration. And they are seeking a reliable country that they can lay on it to defend them when any Iranian threat will approach them. And who can do it? Only Israel. Now we should have to touch the Americans a little bit. Thank you. We have to touch the Americans, the American administration a little bit. So promises in the past 20 years came from the American leaders, and nothing happened. So, are we expected any new thing from President Trump? I'm not quite sure. During his election campaign in 2015, Mr. Trump appeared in Washington, D.C. at the AIPAC conference. I was there, by the way. And he stood up to talk. Among the others, he said in that time, that I am the one, he said, I am the one who is going to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. When people start laughing, he added, as a businessman, not as a politician. In my opinion, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on business. I used to consider the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as ATM. It's a machine. ATM machine. Whenever you put the card, you can withdraw money. And everybody wants to keep that ATM full of billions of dollars. Now, Mr. Trump declared that he is cooking a deal which is going to call it the deal of the century. I believe that this century will pass without a deal. But let us hope that there is something. And looks like that the deal that he is cooking, which is nobody has any details about it, almost supported by some Arab countries. And that makes the Palestinian Authority so nervous on the American administration and on some Arab countries who are supporting the deal of the century. Now, according to some secret information from that deal, that deal is going to focus on the economic issues rather than the political issues, which I am personally completely agree with it. I think that this is the time to start focusing on the economic prosperity on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And that will be really a very remarkable deal if that deal is going to focus on the issue of the economy. And looks like that Mr. Trump is so aware about the economy that he contacted only the rich countries, not the poor countries. Saudi Arabia as an example, United Arab Emirates as an example, Kingdom of Bahrain as an example, Canada as an example, Japan as an example, and the EU. These people can build a state tomorrow morning. So let us hope, because I am a person who used to say that we, the Israelis and the Palestinians, became so fed up from politics, from conferences, from meetings, from agreements. Let us put all of that aside and to start focus on the economic issue. When I am talking about dignity, dignity can be achieved via an economic prosperity. And that's exactly what the majority of the Palestinians are fighting for. How I can live under dignity with my children. I think that this is one of the major, probably, development that could happen to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict if the economic situation will improve between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I think that the Israelis and the Palestinians should have to be forced to create a kind of economic cooperation between themselves, because economic cooperation will benefit the both sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians. And the Israelis has the ability to create such kind of economic prosperity. The big question is when the Palestinian Authority will start accepting the existing of Israel. That's the big question. When the Palestinian Authority will start accepting the existing of the State of Israel. This is what we are suffering from, by the way. And this is how our own authority is keeping us as hostages under the so-called Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Like UNRWA keeping us hostages in the refugee camps in terms to gain power and money on the back of the refugees. This is the major big problem of the Palestinians, friend. When I am appearing in the EU in Brussels and meeting European parliamentarians there, I used to tell those parliamentarians, stop calling the Palestinians victims, because who is victimizing the Palestinians is their own leadership. So I will stop right now and giving the floor for you to ask questions and to make things clear. Thank you very much.
So we have one request. And the request is that you ask a question. And that doesn't mean you make a 5-minute statement with a question mark at the end. So please, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. This is an important topic, and we hope that we can get all of the questions in. And Cheryl will have a mic, and please speak into the mic.
Excellent presentation. Thank you for your view. My question is, what's your best estimate of the percentage of Palestinians in Israel and outside that espouse your position or support it?
Yeah. When we talk about Palestinians, I am, of course, not including the Israeli Arabs. I am talking about Gaza, and I'm talking about the West Bank. I am a person who is living in Jericho, which is under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority since 14 years ago. And I know exactly what people are really thinking about my message. While I am so safe in the West Bank, that's giving the impression that the message almost accepted. Beside that, From the year 2000 until 2014, for 14 years, I appeared in a live program on the Israeli TV Channel 1 in Arabic. Live program in Arabic weekly for 14 years. And what I said here in English, I repeated in millions of times in Arabic. And after the program, I drove my car and I went to sleep in Jericho. I think that the people are aware. The people are complaining. Sometimes people coming to me by saying that you are the voice of the deaf people. Not every Palestinian is Bassem Eid who got impunity from the Palestinian Authority. I paid a lot for this impunity. Not everybody can have it. But while people sitting among themselves, I think that they are even much more critical than I am when they are talking about the Palestinian Authority. But in the meantime, people are so scared to stand up and to speak loudly about their own feelings. So as a Palestinian who is living there and moving around all of the West Bank, I think that there is a very supported, a lot of support for the message that I am trying to spread out. Because as I said, people want a good economy. People never ever ask for state. The only one who is asking for state is Abbas. But the ordinary people want a better economy in turn to survive in dignity. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Eid. Longtime reader and big fan. I have a lot of, can you guys hear me?
If you stand up, we can hear you better.
Hello? Hello? I'll just talk loudly. Hello? Can you hear? Is that better? Okay. Longtime reader and fan of yours, and I appreciate the difficulty that it is to speak truth to power, and I'm sure it's not a popular message in the Palestinian Authority. My question is, I think a lot of people understand the difficulties of getting from here to there, of getting to a point where the Palestinian Authority will recognize Israel, whatever. My question is, given the educational system, given a lot of the indoctrination maybe that goes on about Israel and Israelis, and not just in Israel, but even in other Arab countries, I think making that step, how do you get that step? How do you cross that chasm to get to a point where people can express that?
I got it, thank you. I think that there is a problem with the education system. There is a lot of incitement, no doubt about it. My question is, who is responsible, or who is directly responsible for that? In my opinion, the international community. How is the international community is responsible on that? Because the whole educational system is supported by the Europeans, especially Belgium, and after Belgium, Sweden. It sounds not good, something wrong here. When Belgium and Sweden, meet together on the Palestinian curriculum. The curriculum, I must have to tell you that I appeared several times at the Capitol Hill. I met with your representatives there. I present to them a translation of the curriculum. And they said it's horrible. We, the Americans, should have to do something. As always, the Americans say we will do something, but they did nothing. But the problem is that after I left them, everything evaporated. Several times I was at the capital here. I will be also in another 10 days in the capital here. Without the help of the international community, this curriculum will continue. And this is what I used to say. How you can call for peace while you have such a huge, deep gap of hatred? Still, you need to build a bridge that the two sides can meet. And there is no one leader around the world who is interested to build such kind of bridge. Why? Because the international community itself, I believe, that they became a part of the conflict rather than a part of the solution.
So the follow-on question is, what can we do?
Not really so much. Let me leave that question to the end. I need to think about it. Please. Yes. Yes, you are. Yeah.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming and speaking to us. I'm curious what you are prescribing as the specific authorities that the Palestinian Authority has when there's the Israeli government that's also in charge of what's going on and has a lot of say over the whole land.
Thank you. You know, Israel, like any other country around the world, has the full right to protect its people and its borders. While we, the Palestinians, decided to commit a suicide against civilians, I don't think that Israel will start clapping for us. That's for sure. Let me give you a much better example. Ariel Sharon, in 2004, declared on his peace plan on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What was the plan? That Israel is going to withdraw from the Gaza Strip. And we want to see how the Palestinians are going to rule the Gaza Strip. When Sharon declared on his peace plan to withdraw from Gaza, I know personally several Palestinian leaders start running from one TV channel to another TV channel by saying, if Israel will withdraw from Gaza, we are going to make from Gaza Singapore. I haven't been in Singapore, but I'm wondering if the situation in Singapore are similar to Gaza. Israel withdrew from Gaza, okay? No one Israeli soldier right now in Gaza. Wait, what we did to the Gaza Strip, in my opinion, we destroyed what remains from the Israelis in the Gaza Strip. Even the Hamas in that time said, if Israel will withdraw from Gaza, we are going to transfer our resistance to the West Bank. And what's happened? I don't think that shooting rockets will benefit the Palestinians. This is the reaction that Israel right now imposed on the Gaza Strip. Stop shooting rockets, and you will see how you are going to benefit from that. Look how Israel today, suffering from the shooting of the rockets from Hamas in the south of Israel, and Israel in the meantime is ready at the beginning of each month to transfer $15 million in cash to the Hamas. Are you watching news sometimes? I don't believe in the news, but at least this is something correct that the news reported about. Israel allowing $15 million in cash to enter to the Gaza Strip. What the Palestinians in Gaza really benefiting from that huge amount of money? Zero thing. Zero thing. And I met several times, by the way, with Israeli ministers. And I was so critical towards them. Stop send cash money. Instead to send $15 million in cash, while you know that no one Palestinian benefiting from it, start supplying medicines, electricity, food, water, and send the receipts to Qatar to send you the money. Yeah, please.
I'm going to go back a little to the beginning. I am going to go back a little to the beginning. Do you believe...
Beginning of what?
Of your talk.
Yes.
Not of the earth, but of your talk.
Because at the beginning I was so child, I don't remember.
I was younger, at any rate. Do you believe that Hamas, as an organization, is supporting the terrorists or the anti-Egyptian forces in the Sinai Peninsula?
Yeah, I got it. I think that the Egyptians on several occasions blamed the Hamas by involving in the terror attacks inside Sinai. And that's probably one of the main reasons why Egypt refused to open the Rafah Passage from time to time. You know that Egypt, and mainly during Sisi period, yeah? Sisi almost succeed to push the Hamas in the corner. How? That today you will never see even one tunnel open between Gaza and Egypt. No one. What Israel didn't succeed to do in the past probably 15 years, Sisi succeeded to do it in 3 years. No one tunnel. Because the Egyptian security force realized that the Hamas are offering Gaza as a shelter to the ISIS terrorists. It's a shelter. You can come and have a rest here, eat and refresh, and go back. This is one of the major crises until today between the Hamas and the Egyptian government. So I think that the Hamas already involved in it, and I think that the Hamas will continue fighting for the Islamic Brotherhood movement all over the world. All over the world. Because this is one of their own principles. How to support our mother organization, which is the Islamic Brotherhood movement in Egypt right now. Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
From a Palestinian perspective, do you feel like the BDS is benefiting the Palestinians?
See, I am a person who talk a lot.
Oh, from a Palestinian perspective, do you feel like the BDS is benefiting the Palestinians?
I am a person who already talk a lot, and I wrote a lot against the BDS. The question is if the BDS benefiting the Palestinians. I think that the BDS is a movement which is using the Palestinians, like other organizations, like the UN, like UNRWA, like whatever you want. They are just using us to gain power and money on our suffer. Now, while you are using me, it doesn't mean necessarily that you are benefiting me. People who are acting in Los Angeles, from their warm houses in Los Angeles, how they can benefit the Palestinians in the refugee camps? Tell me. How? I think that these people causing damage to the Palestinians. And the damage is double, by the way. Is double. The first damage, that they are encouraging to kick out our workers from their jobs. This is the first damage. The second damage, that after kicking the workers from their jobs, immediately their children losing the medical insurance. This is everybody must have to understand. So the damage is double, not for me, but also for my children. And I am wondering what those horrible BDS people want from us. And I am asking myself all the time, whom authorized the BDS to speak on my behalf? You know, these people almost disturb a lot of my lectures. Because, because they believe in the freedom of speech. But the freedom of speech is only for the BDS, not for any Palestinian. That's the problem. So I met with them, I saw them, I can consider them that they are only gangsters, that they are just living so well and so freely in Europe and in the United States. The BDS knows very well that if they will appear one day in a refugee camp and asking the Palestinians to boycott Israel, shoes people are going to throw on them. This is the BDS. So I am very happy, first of all, that we, the Palestinians, don't have BDS, by the way, neither in the West Bank nor in the Gaza Strip. I must have to tell you, if you will go early morning to the central markets in the West Bank, you will find tens of thousands of boxes full of fruits and vegetables with the Hebrew writing. Is that came from Jordan or from Egypt? It came from Israel. So we don't have BDS, thanks to God. Because we know what we already want. We know. Nobody else knows around the world what I want. Only me. I know exactly what I want, and I know exactly how to solve it.
Hello, thank you so much. I have a question. Assuming that the people in Gaza are not pro-Hamas, or at least the majority of them are not pro-Hamas, how do they get out from under because I can't believe that free elections are taking place. So how would you suggest that they can change things within Gaza? Can they? What can be done?
I totally agree with you that according to the surveys, the majority in Gaza are totally against the Hamas. But what these people can do. I used to speak with a lot of people in Gaza, by the way. You know, once I suggested something interesting for them. What about to make a kind of a Gazan spring? Yeah? On the light of the Arab Spring, the failure Arab Spring. Let us try Gazan spring. You know what these people answered me? If the Iranian spring succeed, the Gazan spring will succeed. So it's useless. People already realized that they are living under a dictatorship. And under a dictatorship, you don't have any kind of freedoms. You don't have the right to demonstrate. You don't have the right to shout or to speak loudly. I remember 6 months ago, there are a couple of tens of Gazan people gathered together to protest the shortage of electricity in Gaza. What's happened? The Hamas came to them by saying, if you will repeat it again, all of you will be killed. And nobody repeated again until today. This is one of the major problems here. And the biggest problem is that the international community looking in their eyes to what is going on in Gaza, and no one wants to move anything. No one wants to speak a word. No one calling for merciful, from God to the Gazan people. No one. This is the tragedy. This is the tragedy that we are looking to the people dying, and we have the whole tools to help them. And we said, let God help them. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is like some people told me in Gaza, that if Israel tomorrow morning will open one of its passages for 2 hours, 30% of the youths of Gaza will immigrate to outside. People are waiting for opportunity. Look to the demonstrations since a year ago every Friday on the border. Once I asked some people, instead to come to the border, to the Israeli border and to fight the Israelis, go and fight those terrorists and corrupt leadership of the Hamas inside Gaza. You know what the answer was? It's much easier to fight the Israelis than to fight Hamas. That's horrible. So I don't think that any change will come soon towards the situation in Gaza Strip. Let us take others. We need to give, please. Yes. You didn't ask before.
About BDS.
Yes.
I'm not the most literate person about BDS, but what I've heard was that it was specific. The boycotts was not about boycotting Israel, but for example, boycotting the Caterpillar corporation that had created the tractors to tear down the Palestinian homes. They were specific. So that's my understanding of some of the BDS requests.
You are talking about a completely different subject, which is not related to the issue. The BDS, yes, calling to boycott Israel on all levels. Not only to boycott Israel, what the BDS strategy and policy is how to trash Israel. So you are talking about a completely different thing. The BDS want to trash Israel. So don't exclude any small part here and there, yeah? Israel is Israel. BDS is BDS. And the policy is so clear for everybody around the world. Thank you. Please. Yes.
So if a mosque is not the, or I mean not the mosque, if the Palestinian Authority really does not express the Palestinian people, who should foreign governments, in particular, if Jared Kushner or whoever, if they could find someone with a brain that would be helpful, but who should be talking and who should they be talking to? Because it seems like there is no leadership that represents the people in Palestine and what they need to actually recover from having mismanagement, basically, in charge of their society since Arafat, who also stole.
This is what I used to say, that there is a lack of a leadership among the Palestinians, no doubt about it. Now, when you ask me whom they have to negotiate, Abbas. We don't have any other alternative. We don't have any alternative. Abbas. While Abbas is alive, the Palestinian people is Abbas, the Palestinian Authority is Abbas, the Palestinian state is Abbas, everything related to the Palestinians is Abbas. So we don't have. Now some people used to say, what will happen if Abbas will pass away? I used to say that with Abbas it's a problem, but probably without Abbas it might be a tragedy. It's not going to be easy. You know that the Fatah movement these days almost is split to different parties. Abbas party, Jibril Rajoub party, Muhammad Dahlan party. Old generation against young generation. So a fight is going to take place. Probably some assassinations also will take place. And maybe Israel should have to interfere immediately to keep things under control. It's not that easy. But we are not expecting that the replacement of Abbas is going to be like between Trump and Obama. At all not. Never ever expect such kind of thing. So maybe this is another excuse to Mr. Trump to delay his deal of the century until Abbas will come and to see which the new Palestinian leader will appear. Yes, please. Yes.
You just answered the second half of what was going to be a two-part question. So the first half, because Abbas is 88 years old and who knows how much longer, what happens then if Netanyahu is no longer PM and is replaced by the Blue White Party? What do you think will be then the interaction between the government of Israel and the government Palestinian?
Not that much. We already, noticed, let's say during my age, I already saw probably something like 10 different Israeli governments. What the difference between all of those governments? Just nothing. Don't tell me that if Benny Gantz will be tomorrow prime minister, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will be solved. Don't ever expect that. Yes. So, leader is going, leader is coming. At least the society in Israel can refresh itself between one election to another election. Not like us. We already stuck in the past 14 years without elections. And nobody wants elections, by the way, for the Palestinians. neither the Palestinians nor the international community. So I'm not expecting, that much to be happening, but it will be very interesting to wait and to see how that elections are going to get over and which kind of government is going to be reformed afterwards. Please.
Could you speak to the issue of the continued building of settlements by Israel and how that's affecting this whole dynamic? Certainly for Israel's
Yeah. People used to say that settlements is probably one of the major obstacles of peace. But this is not true. We are surviving from those settlements. We, the Palestinians, are surviving from those settlements. These days, we have around 15,000 Palestinians working in the settlements in the West Bank. 15,000. So if you will ask me, who is building the houses of the settlers in the settlements? We are. We are. I can say it loudly and proudly because we want to survive. We don't have any other alternative. Nobody will find me alternative job if I will stop working in the settlements. And believe me, I am visiting a lot of factories in the West Bank, and I saw the brotherhood, let's say, between the Israelis and the Palestinian workers over there. Everybody is so satisfied. Everybody is so satisfied. And that's reminding me, before the Israeli withdrawal in Gaza Strip, how the Palestinians in Gaza used to benefit from the existing of the settlements in the Gaza Strip. I know that very well. The whole construction of the settlements in Gaza has been made by the Palestinians. So I don't want to touch this issue right now. When we will start discussing, a global solution, then probably we'll raise it. But now, I am not really interested to talk about it while the settlements became these days a source of income for my own people. Please.
So, you've done a really good job of describing the difficulties with Hamas in Gaza and with the Palestinian Authority and the corruption you talked about. What makes you optimistic? What makes you optimistic that this economic idea of bringing people together can actually prevail?
I can feel it every day. I can feel it every day. I can see when some Palestinian workers going to the Israeli civil administration and applying for a working permit. And when these people come back, and some of them succeed to receive that working permit, I can notice how much he became a king. He felt like a king. I saw people when they ran away from the steps of the civil administration shouting, "Thank you, my God, I got the permit." That's giving hope. On the other side, I am a person who believes that probably an economic prosperity to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, maybe it will decrease the violence in the region. I think while people have jobs, they start thinking about how much money I have to earn, and they start planning their own future. Not like a jobless people who just sitting home, frustrated, hopeless, and some unbelievable action probably comes through such kind of people. So jobs, jobs, jobs. And I think that the Israelis are very aware about the economic prosperity of the Palestinians. Yes, please. Yes. We need the mic. You are so far away.
First of all, I'm from Israel. And
you are from?
Israel, and my parents actually live right next to your neighborhood, Shuafat, or
where? Nevi Yaakov or Bisgaze? Nevi Yaakov.
Study. And my question is, you said that
yes, please.
you said that economic prosperity is pivotal to the solution. Do you honestly believe that this is the only thing? Because there was some time ago where there was an economic prosperity between Israel and the Palestinian people, and somewhere along the road that deteriorated for some reason, because I think that maybe there are forces on both sides that don't want that prosperity to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, what are other forces that are leading to this deterioration?
Thank you. I remember the economic prosperity period that you mentioned. And that economic prosperity was, by the way, before the Oslo Agreement. After the Oslo Agreement, we lost it. We lost it. This is one of the major problems. So we are not the one who did anything to lose the economic prosperity, but the others who did it, which is the leadership, which is the Oslo Accord, which is, as you might know, divided the territories to 3 different categories: A, B, and C. Right now, people don't know in which category they are living. When I asked him, are you in area A or B? He said, I don't know, what does it mean, A or B? That was a rubbish agreement, by the way. I wish that it wasn't happened. So I think that the one who killed the real economic prosperity was the Oslo Agreement and the people who are standing behind the Oslo Agreement, especially the Palestinians. Show me, since the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, since 25 years ago until today, with the hundreds of billions of dollars that they receive from the international community, show me that the Palestinian Authority succeed to create one job. The monthly salary of the Palestinian worker these days in Israel is between 6,000 to 8,000 shekels. How much the average monthly salary under the Palestinian Authority? Between 1,000 to 1,400 shekels. Imagine, from $400 to $2,000. There is a huge difference here. There is a huge difference. And that's killed the economic prosperity of the Palestinians. Is such rubbish salary of $250 a month, excuse me, how you can survive with that? But you have no other alternative. You still hope that one day things will improve and probably I will start working in Israel and then probably the dignity will start coming out. Yes, please.
What do you think, in your opinion, Israel should do to advance?
What I think too?
Israel should do to advance, to move forward.
See, I am not in a position to give any suggestions to any government in the world. I'm a person who has a very specific message. And the message is how to create more and more jobs and how to bring an economic prosperity. That's it. So what I am calling the Israelis, when I met with the Israelis, that please, 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 give more and more jobs to the Palestinians. I think that these days, the only one who is care about the Palestinian economy, by the way, is only Israel. Not Saudi Arabia, with their billions of money, not United Arab Emirates. Israel is the one who is really very care about the Palestinian economy. And this is what I noticed, that every month, by the way, the government is trying to increase the number of the working permits to the Palestinians. Because the Israelis also very aware that by increasing the working permits, it probably that will decrease the Palestinian violence. So this is what I can suggest to the Israelis. Great. So
what can we do?
That will be the last question. I don't think that much, because I noticed that your representatives almost became handicapped towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's the problem. How the American people can impose more and more pressure on their own representatives, that you must have to do something. What you are doing in the office. Go to the West Bank, go there and check what we can do. What we can do. Leave politics aside. Leave politics aside. This is what you can do, is how to impose pressure. To come tomorrow morning to your representative by saying, excuse me, we heard about a horrible Palestinian curriculum education. Can you please do something? He can. You couldn't. But still, you can encourage him. You can power him. You can give him some energy to do something. As you might know, most of the politicians around the world are so lazy. They need somebody, to push them. To push them. Without pushing them, nothing will be changed. I would like to thank you so much. I love it. I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.